My name is Hassane Mchaourab. I am a professor of molecular physiology and biophysics in the School of Medicine. The fantasy focus of my research is to discover the principles that govern protein dynamics. Although we are shown proteins as these static structure, they're in fact undergoing movement, groups of atoms, collection of residues, secondary structure. And these movements are actually what underpin the function of these proteins, whether it's catalyzing chemistry that just doesn't occur by itself, carrying a signal from outside the cell into the cell through a receptor. So these are sort of the fascinating questions that drive research in the lab. I operate the lab as a community of scientists. What binds us together is the desire to dream, explore, investigate, and discover. My goal is to train members of the lab in the scientific method, formulating a hypothesis, testing a hypothesis, and then telling the world what an aspect or what reality is all about. I like to quote here one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver. So I modified her advice for living a life. So I say advice for doing science: work hard, pay attention, be fascinated, tell about it. I am a first-generation immigrant who experienced firsthand the challenges and opportunities of coming to America and assimilating into a dominating culture. We not only have to be welcoming for underrepresented minorities, first-generation immigrants, and women in science, but also provide the support and infrastructure for them to succeed going forward. And I think Vanderbilt has been pioneering in this respect. I never thought I'd be in biomedical sciences. When I was younger, I wanted to be a physicist, philosopher. And then through coincidence of the Civil War in my home country, I found myself leaving theoretical physics, which I was studying, and going into biophysics. Through biophysics, I discovered the fascinating world of proteins. So I did my PhD in biophysics at the Medical College of Wisconsin, developing tools and methods, and then applied them in my postdoc at UCLA to proteins. So yes, being focused on protein dynamics allow us to explore a vast landscape of diseases. I would mention two examples. We study a protein that is a critical player at the blood-brain barrier. It's a transporter that does not allow molecules, foreign molecules, to cross the blood-brain barrier, as well as acts as a pump to remove chemotherapeutic drugs from cancer cells. So by studying the function of this protein, we hope down the road to assist other practitioners in the field in discovering new molecules to change the function of this protein, particularly in treatment of cancer. Another example is neurotransmitter transporters, such as the serotonin transporter, which is the site of action of illicit drugs, as well as the site of action of therapeutics. And so we study how can we better design these molecules so they act directly on this transporter. I am best known in my field in developing and applying new approaches, particularly the tools of electron paramagnetic resonance spectroscopy to decipher, to understand, to illuminate how transporters take one form of energy, say ATP or ionic gradients, in order to carry out their function, to power moving, for example, the serotonin molecule across the membrane, or pumping out a chemotherapeutic drug from a cancer cell. We go all the way from classic biochemical methods to study proteins, to advanced structural biology techniques, rigorous computational modeling, and we test our views, our ideas of how things work in animal models. For example, the zebrafish is a primary tool in my lab. So we go from the molecule to the organism in terms of trying to think about our questions. Structural biology is the quintessential foundational of basic sciences. Understanding, for example, proteins will allow us to put together the biochemical and physiological circuits of the cell. So in terms of a holistic understanding of organism, but also has more practical implications. Think about how mutations in proteins cause diseases. So understanding that will allow us to link genotypes with phenotypes, for example. Funding provides the currency that allows us to dream, explore, and discover. Without funding, science, biomedical sciences, basic sciences will come to a screeching halt. So I've been at Vanderbilt for 21 years. In the late 90s, Vanderbilt made strategic investments in emerging areas of biomedical research. I was attracted by the promise that these investments will catalyze advances in these fields. And of course, equally important is the collegial collaborative environment at Vanderbilt that I got to experience and kept me here for all these years. I look for two things: passion and grit. Passion is for science infuses us with the energy to again think, explore, investigate, and discover. Grit is what keeps us going, what sustains this excitement, this energy through the ups and downs of science, which we all know is the downs vastly outnumbers the ups, but the ups give you such pleasure.